Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another installment of Flyer Gonna Flyer, our 65th episode. We got a good one again for you this week. Flyers, 4 games, only 1 win, unfortunately, but 4 points. Could have been worse, could have been better. Although it kind of did leave a bit of a bitter taste in our mouths. 1-1 in 2 weeks, especially those last 2 games, which they had leads and kind of squandered them away, leaving at least potentially 3 points on the table. Ristolainen is back in the fold. What's the impact that he's made overall? And we'll give our takes as a collective whole there. We're going to do some mock trades for Christmas. Having a little fun with that. Give some gifts to Flyers Nation. Tyson Foerster, we got an ominous update on him, and it is not good. It looks like his season is likely over as he has had surgery on his arm. They said 5 months, likely gone for the season. We'll give our impact on that. And then finally, we'll give some predictions on next week's games. Joining me, as always, is one of my 2 awesome, gracious co-hosts. You know him, you love him, Mr. Eric Martino. Eric, how you doing today, bud?
Not too bad, boys. Not too bad. Always a good day to talk Flyers hockey. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely. 100% there. And if you haven't noticed, we have one of our favorite guests today from the O&B Puck. You know him, you love him. Give him a shout out on his Twitter @handle above @O&B Puck. I'm sorry, below, not above. Listen to me, Mr. Isaiah. Isaiah, how you doing today, man?
Doing all right. Fun to talk hockey this morning with this team. A lot going on.
Oh, absolutely. It's always good having you. It's always good having our friends from the O&B Puck. We always welcome you guys. It's always a good time. No Jamey this week, but the 3 of us are going to give you a good breakdown of these games. So let me start with you, Isaiah. Flyers went 1-1 and 2 this week. What was your recap of the week, and what is your thoughts just in general?
Well, the Flyers are in a losing skid. I think that no matter how many loser points they keep getting, if you look at their last 10 games, they've lost 7 of them. Now, in those 7 losses, they've managed to get points in 4 of them, but they're going through a spiral right now. And if you add the injuries, which we're not really sure the extent of, to Dvorak and especially to Vladar, it's a little ominous right now, especially on the heels of what we're going to talk about a little bit later with Tyson Foerster. And it turns people's eyes toward Danny Briere and what he's going to do. And, you know, we'll talk about the move to bring up Denver Barkey and all of that. And probably the most positive development of the week, in my opinion. And I'm a little concerned that this team, and like Taka talks about, has a real consistency problem. So, you know, against Carolina, you know, they had that back-to-back, which kind of gets into last week a little bit. They were outplayed in every period except the first period of the first game and the third period of the last game. Vladar was outstanding and was able to get, you know, garner a point. And they come back versus Montreal. They lose to Buffalo in a manner where they come out. They obviously were feeling their oats off of that Montreal game. And then Buffalo just took away from them. They threw that game away, in my opinion. And then I think yesterday afternoon, I think the same thing. They were up, 4-2. And then they just careless giveaways. So, and goaltending that was reminiscent of last year, to be honest with you. So, yeah, there's a lot to sort through right now for Tocchet and Briere, and as they look toward, you know, this break and then the trade deadline coming up. It's going to be intriguing, that's for sure.
I think you make some very good points there, especially with just the careless and the inabilities to hold a lead right now. Like, when I look at where the Flyers are right now, like if you look at the grand scheme of things, they're 17-10-7. They're currently in the first wild card position, which if we asked at the beginning of the year, that's not too bad. But in the grand scheme of things, some cracks are definitely starting to show in the armor. And I absolutely agree with you at a lot of these points, Isaiah. The second Carolina game, I didn't catch too much of this game, but I did happen to catch the third period. And they kind of got bailed out by Vladar and a bit of a fortunate rebound that Trevor Zegras put in to tie that game up. That's a good loser point. You know, I kind of distinguish games with bad and good loser points. That's a game you stole a point. You really didn't deserve to get anything there. But Vladar kept you in. Zegras got you a late goal. You got that game to a shootout. And suddenly the Flyers have lost 3 straight shootouts after they were completely owning them all season. But that's a different conversation for another day. But that's a game that you can at least keep your head held a little high. Like, okay, we at least managed to get a point. Then you have the Montreal game, and a game that I think was one of their better games all season. They allowed the first goal, but Montreal really didn't have much of sustainability in that first period. Despite that, the Flyers got it right back real quick. And then in the second period, they just went balls to the walls. Fowler had that horrible turnover behind the net, and Michkov fed Brink on that tap-in one-timer. And Montreal, they kind of got a little bit of a spurt in the third, but they really never got anything going after that. After the first 5 to 6 minutes, Flyers kind of just played smart. They played strong defensively, and that was a good win. Then we fast forward to those Buffalo games. That game, you came out of the game hot. You had your foot on their throat. The first period and weak starts is something we have emphasized with the Flyers for quite some time. And, once again, they gave up the first goal. This continues to be a consistent pattern on this team. 17 of their last 21 games. You can't keep doing this to expect to win consistently. I get it. Yeah, this team leads the league in comeback wins, but it's not sustainable for an 82-game pace. It just isn't. You have got to find a way to start getting off the better starts. But in retrospect to my last comment, they did at least come out of the gates in a general perspective hot against Buffalo until Buffalo did score the first goal. Flyers got it going in the second, and then late second period, they kind of collapsed, as you mentioned. 2 goals allowed there, completely imploded, lost that game 5-3. It was a bad late second leading into the third. And, Urson let in at least one softie there. I'm not going to blame him a lot of the goals there, but there was one bad goal he had in that game. I believe it was the third one late in the second period that he just got beat on a simple wrister. That's the type of shot you got to save late in the period. That completely flipped the momentum. The Flyers won the heels, and it kind of just led to a bad start in the third, too. It just flipped momentum just in a general perspective. But that Rangers game yesterday, man, you cannot, and I mean cannot, let your foot off the throttle on the road against a division rival who has won 4 games at the Garden all year. They have been awful in MSG. And this goes back to the goaltending. The first 2 goals, I'm not going to blame Urson for, but the third goal, I get it kind of went off of a skate, but it was still a pretty savable shot. And then the fourth goal, again, I get you're on the power play. I get it's a bad delay of game by Ristolainen. But how do you get beat 5-0 on a one-timer from the friggin' face-off dot? It's inexcusable. If you get beat clean top shoulder or something like that, that's one thing. But getting beat 5-0 from that far out, oh, man, you can't do that. That's rough. And, I look at the big picture for this week, Dvorak and Vladar injuries, as you mentioned. I think Vladar should be back relatively soon. Briere said they hope tomorrow. We'll see. If not. I wouldn't be opposed as to holding him out even those last 2 games and just give him those extra days to rest before their West Coast trip. But they need more from Sam Urson. This has been a plague with this guy. Flyers social media calls this guy Sammy Swiss, and he's living up to that crappy nickname because he just keeps finding ways to let in bad goals at the worst time. And you can't do that. And they were missing Dvorak yesterday because down the middle, I felt like they were losing some critical thoughts late in that third period. But it's a game that you got to find way to win when you're up 2 in 2 separate opportunities in that game. Positive notes: Denver Barkey, awesome debut, 2 assists, looked good, looked like he belonged just in a general perspective. Trevor Zegras continues his absolute terror run, 7 straight games with a point. That one-timer was an absolute beaut. He looked good. I've been critical of Konechny in the past over the last few weeks, but I think he had actually a pretty decent week. Just in a general perspective, how much of that is playing in line with Zegras to be debated, but I thought he was actually pretty decent. Jamey Drysdale, low-key, on pace for over 30 assists this year. I'm starting to see something with him a little bit too. But Urson's got to make some of those saves. Couturier continues to have mental lapses, especially on the defensive end, that are really concerning. That goal against Buffalo where him and Samheim miscommunicated when he left the defensive zone too early, and Sanheim just let off that bad pass. Not a great week for Sanheim, to be honest with you, either, although he did score yesterday. But he had a few mental lapses as well. But just in a general perspective, Couturier did not have a good week either. But that's my take on the week. I agree with you that this team is starting to definitely show cracks in the armor. They're starting to have some injuries pile up. Dvorak, Vladar, obviously Foerster out for the season, which we'll go over a little bit later. But this team's going to really be tested now, especially with the Western Canada road trip in Seattle coming up soon. And that seems to have always been this team's Achilles heel. So we'll see how they do when they go out there next weekend. Eric, how about you? What'd you think of the week?
Well, you know what? One of my biggest takeaways is that I think the Flyers have to get Pico on the phone and see what's going on, because some things the power keeps on going on and off, and there seems to be an issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know this may sound cliche, you have to play 60 minutes. You gotta play 60 minutes. Well, fuck, this team has to play 60 minutes. Like, it's like against Carolina, the first game this week. Again, like you guys said, they had a terrible start to the season. They had a terrible start to the game. Just terrible start to the game. And then whatever. Eventually, like, played better, like, at this, I would say, after about the second half of the second, and then like going into the third. But then the last three games, okay, they were outshot in the third period 34-13. That is absolutely ridiculous.
That's bad.
You cannot get outshot that bad in 3 straight games. Especially, like, look, Montreal, whatever, we had the lead. At least they didn't let Montreal back into the game. But like we said, Buffalo and the Rangers, like, they literally, like, I think I seen this, a switch just goes off. And it's like, oh, no, we're good. We got a lead. We're good. And then they let the other team back in. Now, I don't know if this is a coaching issue, if this is like, oh, we have a lead, so let's play like prevent defense, or like, like, let's sit back. But it's like they're going full pin. They're going. And then all of a sudden it just stops. And then it's like the other team comes at them, and then they have no answer for it. So like, that was really, really concerning for me this week, especially this week. Like we've seen it before. Like we said, like, it's mostly been first periods, but now it's like third periods where we can't close games when we have leads, And we allowed the first goal in every game this week. In 4 straight games, we have allowed the first goal. Okay, we have to stop playing from behind. Like, we
17 out of the last 21 games, Eric, they've done this. This is better.
I know, it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, look, Sam Erson, man. Like, I really hope Vladar gets back soon. I really hope it's not that serious, because this was interesting. That, like, no, look, all, like, most of the stats that I pull are from Money Puck. So this is his numbers on Money Puck for the last 2 games. So basically the Buffalo game and then the Rangers game. Okay, in the Buffalo game, he had a minus 1.06 goals saved above expected and an 852 save percentage. Not great. What's concerning to me, okay, what's the most concerning? Low danger goals against, 2. Medium danger goals against, 2. High danger, 0. So it's like he's making the big, like, those high danger, he'll make those saves, but then, like, he'll let in, like, softies. Again, the Rangers game, he had a minus 1.23 goals saved above expected, and again, an 852 save percentage. And again, low danger goals against, 3. Medium danger, 1. High danger, 0. So you can't keep this up. Like, you can't. Like, I'm sorry. Like, these are bad even for backup numbers. Like, these are bad backup numbers. And so, like, look, could the Flyers have played better in front of him, especially like those last 2 games? Like I said, getting crazy outshot in the third period. Yeah, they could have. But he's not making those, look, that one. He's letting in basically 1 goal he should in every game, at the very least 1. And he's not making, and it's like these easy, like these low danger shots that he's letting in. Like, at the same time, yes, I understand that the Flyers could be playing better in front of you, especially late in the game. But come on, man, like, you got to make those saves you have to make. Like, you can't let in a bunch of softies every game. So, and look, and like, because you compare it to like Vladar was in the pluses in the both games this week that he played. He was in the pluses for goals saved above expected, with a 1.61 against Carolina and a 1.44 against Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we can't play Vladar 82 games a season. Like, like, we can't. We just can't play him every game. So look, I saw that they recalled Kolosov, and now, like, look, I don't know how long Vladar is gonna be out for. Like, I think Danny said it's day to day, so I'm actually thinking, I don't know if maybe Kolosov gets in a game, maybe next game, or I don't know, but I think you gotta at least give him Kolosov one game just to see what he's got in the NHL, because right now, like the way Sammy's playing, like, I'm sorry, it's just not cutting it. Like, it's not cutting it. We can't go in with a goalie like that every game. So anyway, that's pretty much what I saw from the week there. It was a bit of a tough week, but at least there are signs of improvement.
Yeah. As a collective whole, I do agree there are some positives, but I don't know. You got to think Urson's leash is getting shorter. It is definitely getting shorter. This could be something that they made. I don't think he's back after this season anyway, personally. But
I was just going to say the same thing. And if Hathaway's leash is already look like it's getting short to the point where he could be a wave candidate if this goes on for another month.
Yeah.
This has been Urson ever since Carter Hart left the organization. This is the Urson that we know and don't love. And I feel that the organization is ready to do some experimentation, like Eric said, about taking a look at Kolosov to see if he's viable. I don't think he's ready. I think he's the kind of kid that needs a whole other year at least. But I mean, you got to stop the bleeding. And if Urson's playing like Eric said, you assume that the Flyers are already down 1-0. That's really because there's one bad goal every game. I've said this on all of our shows. With Urson, if he doesn't give up a bad goal, it's an upset.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Like, it's just a consistent issue. Like, if you're at the point, I agree with you. I don't think Kolosov is ready either. I think a little bit, at least for the rest of this season, I'd like him to marinate. Maybe you could open up this discussion in 26, 27. But the Flyers are tied. They may not have a choice. You're not bringing Bjarnason up yet. The kid's definitely too raw. He's probably 2 years out. I wouldn't touch him yet. You don't want to screw up another goalie prospect. So you may not have a choice but to potentially bring up Kolosov, or you explore the trade market for a goalie. Like, and do you really want to do that right now? Like, you've already waived Zamula this week. That's something that we haven't really touched on. He's gone out of the fray, especially now with Ristolainen back. Andre looked like he has a spot locked up. Juleson looking like the fill-in number 7 defenseman. Zamula's spot was completely gone. He had no spot here in general. Now that you have Barkey here, if he sticks, Grundstrom looks like he's sticking on that fourth line. Abels looks like he's got one of the spot. Dude, Nick Delorier is at least bringing a little bit more than Garnet Hathaway. And I hate to say that because D'Lo is cooked. He's beyond cooked. But at least he can throw the hands and try to get you a spark out of your team. At least he brings that. I mean, Hathaway can fight too, but Hathaway has brought in that fourth line to at least give you a little bit of an offensive spark, and you just can't do that. He
played 30 games, and it's 30 games, 0 points, -8, and I'm not even getting into Corsi or expected goals.
He's a poor player again. That's unacceptable. He should have at least 4 or 5 points minimum at this stage. Minimum. You can't go into a season playing at that lack of quality. But the whole fourth line's been a mess, to be honest with you. Rigo Abels, I think, has 2 goals, and he's done.
Well,
and
he's a winger. He's a winger playing center.
Yeah, true. But like that whole fourth line's just a mess right now. I think they might want to even look at the trade market, or maybe they can bring up maybe Devin Kaplan, or maybe move Abels back to the wing and move him, Gunstrom, and Kaplan be that fourth line. Something needs to change there. That fourth line is a complete black hole. They give you nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're a 3-line team right now. So issues for sure in that retrospect as well. But anything else you gentlemen want to touch up on before we move on to our next topic?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, Flyers did get a little bit of good news last week. We kind of hesitated bringing this up a bit over the weekly recap because I think it would be better saved for this particular segment. But Rasmus Ristolainen is back in the fray, and that was good to see. He came back on that Tuesday game against Montreal. And I got to say, it was very welcoming to see him back. I think he's been outside of the late delay of game he took yesterday, which was obviously a massive blunder in that at that point of the game ended up potentially costing the Flyers a point. Not all on him, Urson too, but I will say I'm a little happy at what I've seen this week out of him in just those 3 games he played. Eric, what is your take on Risto on his return?
Oh, I'm thrilled with his return. Look, now we have at least, like, I don't want to say competent, because you know what? I'll give it to Noah Jolson though. Like, I was really expecting a lot worse from him, and he was actually surprisingly decent for the time that he did play. So, like, he did struggle a bit, but like, at least, you know, with Ristolainen, like the way he's played, especially the last couple of years in the past, like he's at least a number 4. But now, like, if we could play him on, like, let's say on a third pair, like that's just, it's an actual good defenseman, a solid defenseman to actually play on your third pair to solidify your top 6. So, like, look, at the end of the day, he brings what he brings. He's big, he's physical, he clears the net, he's got that reach, he can break up plays. So, you know, he brings that extra dimension to your defense. And like, we all know, like, how much, you know, Keith Jones loves his big defenseman. So, you know, and like, I was actually surprised. Like, look, in the Montreal game, like, you know, he's just coming back, his first game, you know, like maybe they'll ease him in, you know, 10, 12 minutes. The guy played 19-18, 3 hits, 2 blocks. Like no rust whatsoever. And, you know, that's really, really encouraging. And like, look,
that hit he laid on Josh Anderson. I think it was Josh Anderson the first period, the draw penalty on Demidov. That was awesome. Awesome. Got the team going.
No, and look, I forget. I don't know if it was talking or anyway. I think somebody had mentioned that maybe they want to try him on the power play. So, you know what, we'll see. Because, like, you know, he's probably gonna bomb it from the top. So we'll see what happens. And like, well, maybe he'll get a chance eventually. Like, he has played power play before, especially when he was with Buffalo early in his career. Like, he did put up quite a few points on the power. Now, again, this is a discussion we'll get into a little bit later. But like, the Flyers are struggling right now to find somebody up top on the power play. So, you know, maybe he could be the solution. But like, look, so far, I love what I'm seeing from Risto. And look, at the end of the day, if Risto is, I don't think so, because I think Doc probably loves him. Keith Jones probably loves him. So I don't know if he would actually end up ever getting traded at any point soon. But the way he's playing, like, especially like those couple games that he's been back, like, he's shown that, like, there's no rust. Like, I'm good to go, man. And it's like, he's playing very well. So even if, like, he has to be included for a trade, let's say to get a number 1 D-man Russ or a young center or something, at least teams will see what he's doing right now and be like, oh, okay, this is Risto from the last couple of years. This is the new improved Risto, you know? And has no rust, and he has no. So no, like, honestly, all positives from Risto.
Well said. Well said. How about you, Isaiah? What's your take on Risto's return?
Yeah, it's hard to add a lot to that, but I think that Risto came in. Obviously, he's pent up with adrenaline, and it showed. I mean, throwing the hits the way he did, but he's still killing plays. I mean, you know, the old Risto was running after hits, getting caught out of position, and getting a little bit of glory on the power play, but is considered one of the worst defensemen in the league relative to his skill set. And of course, we all know that Bradshaw came in with Tortorella and cleaned him up and got him refocused on making sure that he has his priorities straight. And he was a better player before the injuries kicked in. And what we saw in Montreal was really exciting. They have a competent defense if the guys play up to their ability. They have some high-risk players, like Andre's a high-risk player. But, you know, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and vice versa with him. And, you know, Risto added to that, gives them a physical presence they simply did not have. And I think it shows with forwards taking liberties around the net and you know, some of the top 4 defensemen struggling in that regard, it maybe with the exception of Sealer. So, you know, I don't know what the future is going to hold. I like the way Eric alluded to the fact that Risto becomes someone that other teams could find valuable if the Flyers are looking to make a trade and get a defenseman of a higher level. Maybe someone could kick their power play into gear, and any kind of value you get from a player like Risto is value added to this lineup. They really need something. And because they have so little margin for error, when you have Ursan in that you take everything you can get. And I agree with Tocchet with the difficulty they've shown in having that defenseman at the top who can really be a threat as a shot. It's worth a shot. We saw it last year. It wasn't really much, but maybe with the different configuration, with the different coaching staff, Ristolainen could be at least more adequate from what we're seeing. I know Drysdale's really trying, but Risto is another possibility there. And of course, the main thing though is the physical presence, the intimidation that the Flyers will, show to other teams, and it'll make them more cautious when they're around the Flyers net, which really hasn't been the case up to this point.
You make some very good points there, Isaiah. I mean, he's definitely a major piece potentially as a trade commodity if this team does decide to go in a little bit of a sell perspective. I don't know what the Flyers are going to be doing yet. Obviously, Risto, I think, has one more year left on his contract after this, and this year's free agent class coming up is already a little watered down. So outside of maybe Artemi Panarin and maybe Sherwood is maybe the next highest guy off to that, this isn't a really exciting class. So it could bring a little more value in Erasmus Ristolainen, definitely moving down the road if they end up going down that road. In terms of his current play, he brought an instant physical presence this team was lacking. This team, one of the biggest issues with the Flyers has always been their lack of size. And, Risto is one of their biggest, if not their biggest player just in general. I mean, Travis Sanheim's a pretty big dude too. But Ristolainen comes in and just makes an immediate impact in terms of physicality. He had 2 or 3 really big hits, drew a penalty in that Montreal game, as I mentioned not too long ago. He ate up some big minutes, which will probably take a little bit of a load off of Sanheim and York, which is good too. You go down long-term part of the season, you don't want Sanheim playing 26, 27 minutes a night. You're going to need him more close to that 22, 23-minute mark, so at least he can pace himself a little. And a guy like Rasmus Ristolainen can eat a couple of those minutes to give him that extra time to, lay back, especially when push comes to shove for the late grinds of like February, March, and April after the Olympic break. So when you look at that perspective, that's big. He could bring a boost to the power play, as Eric and you mentioned. Like, that's something that this team has been definitely lacking. Eric mentioned it last segment, how poor this team's power play has been lately. Yeah, they put up 2 power play goals yesterday, but then they have about half the overtime on a 4-on-3 power play, and they all look like they're standing there. Like, that's one thing that just drove me batty about last week, is how poor that 4-on-3 power play, last week's games technically now, but how bad that 4-on-3 power play was. Everyone felt like they were standing in place and just passing and being compliant. So maybe having a guy from the net front to maybe a guy from the point, sorry, not the net front, from the point who can really rip it like Risto could at least maybe open things up a little bit. In terms of having him back in general, I'm happy. I'm just hoping he can stay healthy, because durability has always been a big question mark at Ristolainen his entire career, especially here in Philly. Like, obviously, he just came back from a major triceps injury. Year before that, he had some injury issues as well. I think he had some shoulder problems, if I remember correctly. Like, he's been someone who has been on the shelf quite a bit for his career. So that's something we definitely have to keep an eye on, and could be an impact on his trade value because of that. But in terms of what he brings this team, I think the ripple effect is going to be helpful. I think whether you put him on the second or third pair, he's got consistency. He's played with Drysdale before. He's played with Sealer before. He's played with Sanheim before. So chemistry-wise shouldn't be an issue. You could probably really, if you need to, slot him almost anywhere. But I think in that bottom 4 would be better for him, if just at least for long-term perspective of the season. But I'm happy at what he brought. He made an instant impact. As you mentioned, Eric, they didn't really hold back on his minutes that much. And it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. But I'm very happy to see Ristolainen back in the fold. Hopefully he finally can stay healthy, because as I just mentioned, durability has always been a big issue with him. But I thought he was very impactful in a positive way outside of that late delay of game yesterday. But aside from that, I was happy about what I saw. So hopefully he can continue to build on this and stay healthy for the long term of the season. Anyone got anything else to add with this?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So, with that being said, let us move on to our next topic. It is Christmas time, and we always like having gifts for Christmas, having some fun with this. So, the name of this episode is Flyers Christmas Trades, and going to do a little bit of fun mock trades. So, we've all compiled some mock trades. I ran some polls myself this week, and those are going to be the 4 trades I use. If you haven't seen them already, I'll be bringing them back up as well. So let's have some fun with this. Isaiah, let me start with you. Give me a mock trade for Flyers Christmas you would like to bring into the
boy. Well, I have, I guess, 2 categories. Mm-hmm. Things that I think are possible, realistic, and likely, or more likely. And then there's like the fantasy stuff. Okay, so why don't we start with the realistic and delay gratification, if you will. I think that the Flyers have a clear need at center, because I think part of the issue with Couturier is he's being overutilized, much what you were talking about Sanheim having a rough week. He's not a number 1 defenseman. And I think you saw Sanheim was out there with Ristolainen at different parts of the game. And I think that Ristolainen is going to eat into some of those minutes, because one of the biggest problems the team has overall is slotting. Okay, slotting, the power play, and the nothing from the 4th line. So why don't we address some of that by getting Alexander Wenberg for a 2nd-round pick? I think he's playing for San Jose right now. He's a UFA, so it would cost you a 2nd-round pick. He's a 40-point center at best, but he kind of replaces a lot of what we lost with Ryan Poehling. And he's a little bit better than Poehling, not so much in terms of being, a good skater, but in the details of his game, positionally, knowing how to play, winning faceoffs. He's a professional center. He's one of the more boring players you'll ever watch. But they need that kind of boring right now. So I would say that he is someone the Flyers could definitely look at. That is one realistic trade. The other one would be a guy I really can't stand, but again, he's a professional center, and they don't have any better alternatives in Lehigh Valley. Peyton Krebs from Buffalo. Never really fit in. He's a
the old reclamation project.
Yeah, the old reclamation. Don't try to reclaim him. He's a 4th liner. They need it. For a 3rd-round pick, you could get him from Buffalo, and now's a good time, because Yarmo sees this guy is just never going to be anything special, certainly relative to his draft position as, what was it, a late 1st-round pick originally by the Vegas Golden Knights, I believe. But so those are practical trades we could see. It is imperative, and especially we see with how dependent the Flyers are on Dvorak. Without Dvorak in the lineup, I mean, it's just a mess down the middle. And then you're relying really heavily on Cates. A lot of people still think Cates is a better winger. I think the organization has concluded that Trevor Zegras really is a winger. He can do the hybrid thing. And Couturier is leaking oil already. Okay. So then we come to the fun trades. And I haven't put together exactly what the compensation would be, but there's 2 players on Buffalo. I'm not crazy about either one of them, but I'm being quasi-realistic.
I have a feeling we're going to be thinking of the same guy, because I got some trades with Buffalo coming up soon.
So the Flyers were able to take somebody like Jamey Drysdale, who was basically a failure at the NHL level, and maybe not get a lot of offense out of him, definitely get him to play with more urgency, play with more attention to detail. He's a good defensive defenseman right now, and a lot of it is he's using what his assets are, his speed. His legs have really been utilized in a way they weren't utilized. So again, credit to Bradshaw and Reardon too, now taking that, to another level. Owen Power was a 1st overall pick by the Buffalo Sabres. And he looks like he's just going through the motions. He's very passive. He's this big guy who just, it looks like he doesn't want to put a hair out of place. So I don't know if he's reclaimable, but either him or Bowen Byram could be the kind of defenseman that the Flyers could take and make something from what is essentially nothing. At least Byram will contribute on the offensive end. He probably would be the best offensive defenseman on their team if they acquired him. And it would probably cost you somebody like Andre and probably, I would think, a first-round pick to get him. And is that worth it, knowing that he cannot be signed or re-signed until July 1st? So this is a gamble that the Flyers would have to make. The other thing is about Byram, he's very soft defensively. But again, if they really want that offense and they're willing to live with that, and you're swapping out a guy like Andre who plays with more grit but doesn't have the talent and will never have the talent nor the size, then Bowen Byram might be the ticket for the Flyers. But I think if somebody thinks Owen Power can be remade and fulfill his potential, be unlocked, he might be the gem that the Flyers would be worth taking a flyer on. But
no pun intended.
They need somebody to emerge defensively, and he might be that guy.
Honestly, I would have loved to see Owen Power under Brad Shaw to see what Shaw could have potentially did with him, because he just felt like the defensive whisperer when he was here. He did a lot of work with Jamey Drysdale, obviously. He reworked Travis Sanheim. He completely, I won't say completely, but really revamped Ristolainen's game and made him into not maybe completely defenseman everyone thought, but a much better variant of the player he ended up becoming. But in general, I like a lot of those choices here. I actually kind of stole some of my thunder on one of them. You'll see a little bit later. But Eric, let me hear yours. And I'll do some of the ones that I got from my social media polls.
Well, I have a lot. My thought process is a lot like Isaiah's, where I think there's two honestly serious needs where the Flyers right now have to address, and I think it's definitely 4C for sure. And now, if they can get somebody, obviously, if they can get somebody higher up, like if they can somehow get I don't think they're going to get a 1C, but at least a middle six center, then it would just drop everybody one notch down and it would fit perfect. But now, again, is that guy available? Half of the league is looking for a center right now, and like no one is trading them. So, like, look, like Isaiah also, I think even last episode I mentioned Alexander Wenberg. Now, last week I mentioned that he's a guy that if ever Dvorak walks, he's a guy I can see Briere throwing a Dvorak contract to 1 year, like stupid crazy money just to have like that insurance for Luchenko, let's say, if he's not ready, because Wenberg is a 3C most likely, like average 3C but he would be like a great 4C. But at least he can play up and down your lineup. And if I'm not mistaken, this year he's actually playing 2C for San Jose. Obviously, also that's just because, like, obviously San Jose is a team that's, they're rebuilding. So obviously, but yeah, look, he's a guy I wouldn't mind. I think he might cost you more than a second because but I wouldn't go, honestly. If it would cost more than a second, I would say pass. But he's a guy I would take a shot on. A couple other guys that I kind of like. One guy, he's actually been hurt since the beginning of the season, but is expected to come back after Christmas, and probably won't cost you much because of that. So I don't know if maybe they'd be willing to do it for, let's say, a third or a fourth. But a guy like Teddy Bluger out of Vancouver, like, this is a guy he's pretty much been a bottom of the lineup guy his whole career. But he's actually a half decent, like, he puts up some decent numbers. So he's a guy I could look, but like, just bring him in and see what happens. Like, if it's only going to cost you a third or a fourth, like, honestly, who cares? Like, at this point, like, we have to fix that fourth line because it's not producing anything. So he's a guy. Igor Shinnikov out of Columbus. The guy's been asking for a trade. And with him, I find now he was drafted as a center, but he's been playing mostly wing in Columbus. So, but he's a guy, he's young. He's young enough that I would take a chance. See what they want. Because look, at this point, his value is just dropping because he's just not playing in Columbus. His value is just dropping. So if we could throw them a second, if they'd be willing to do it for a second, you take that chance. You put him in a 4C and you're like, honestly, like, how much worse can it get? How much worse can it get? Like, so he's a guy I would take a shot on to see. And then who knows if maybe he clicks and he can play higher up in your lineup. So that's another guy I would take a chance on. But for me, I made this like a bigger trade. A guy I've always liked, and I've mentioned this a bunch of times. The Flyers have to target Buffalo because they have a lot of young centers. And I've mentioned them before. Noah Ostlund, Constance Hellenius, Yuri Kulik. Like, get me one. Like, they're not going to use them all. Get me one. And honestly, I really like he's a little on the smaller side, but like I really like Noah Ostlund. Like like the game that we played against Buffalo this week, I made it like not a habit, but like I focused in on him. Now he didn't play much. I think he played like 13 minutes, just under 13 minutes or something, but he had a goal, and the guy just looked dangerous every time he was on the ice. Now he's playing wing right now for Buffalo. But again, that's also because they have Cage, they have McLeod, they have Josh Norris. So they have their 3D, like they have their 3 centers already. So this is a guy I'd be willing to take a chance on. Like, he's young, he's talented. Yes, he's not big. I get it. I get he's not big. And, everyone wants these massive centers. But, like, where are they? Please, if you could tell me where are these massive centers that are available, I'd like to know. Because they're just not there. They're not there, and they're not available. So look, this is a guy I would take a chance on. And like Isaiah mentioned, Owen Power. He's another guy I would love to take a chance on also and maybe unlock something there. So, like, look, I don't know if they would do this, but like I put like an Ostlund and Power for Tippett and Ristolainen. So Ristolainen going back to Buffalo because they could really use a guy like him on the right side. So maybe it would entice Buffalo. And now we're like 2 general managers removed. So maybe, like fences can be mended, so Tippett, Risto, and maybe Toronto's first for Owen Power and Noah Ostlund. Is that enough to get it done? Maybe. Like I said, they could use another big right-handed defenseman to play on that blue line with Kesselring. But they could use like a veteran scoring winger. That's where Tippett comes in. And you throw them an extra first. So that's a trade I could possibly see happening. So, but I just think Buffalo's a team to like key in on. Now there's 2 other defensemen. I don't know how likely it's gonna happen. Roman Yossi's a guy I brought up before. Someone on Twitter actually brought up to me and I completely forgot, but he has something what's called Pott's disease. So it's apparently it affects you when you're like
you stand up, your heart races.
Exactly. But now I was reading up on him, and I was reading up on it, and apparently they have it under control with him. Who knows? He's been playing really well since he got back. Because he didn't start the season, but he's been playing really well since he's got back. So what does Nashville want to do? Is Nashville gonna blow it up? Does he want to leave? Does he want to? At his age, he's 35 years old. Does he want to go to a contender? Now, is Philly a contender? No, but he could be like that Chris Pronger that brings up this young team. So he's an option. Another one, highly unlikely, but Dougie Hamilton. He's been in the rumor mill the past few weeks. The thing is, I don't see New Jersey making a trade with us because also I don't think we have what New Jersey wants. So that's a bit more touchy. But again, these are guys that like Hamilton and Yossi. These are guys that have had success on the power play before in their careers. These are guys that can give our power play like a little shot in the arm and that could play like top minutes on the first pairing. So, all right, these are just a few guys I focused in on.
I like a lot of those choices you made, Eric. Buffalo is definitely a team that's ripe for the picking. New Jersey would be interesting if they could pull that off. I agree. I don't know how likely that would be, especially with them being right with us in the playoff hunt. Roman Yossi, you've mentioned him on prior episodes. Could be a potential Pronger type as well. So I'm going to give 2 players.
Can I chime in before you go?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say if I have my choice and I'm trading for Ostlund, I'd rather try to stretch it and improve the package to get Hellenius. The Flyers, I really like that player better than Ostlund. I'm not sure Ostlund can play center. I've heard people who I think Mike Agello was he covers them pretty
Interesting.
pretty closely. I really like Hellenius, and I'd pony up. I doubt you could get him, but and Ostlund is a nice little player. There's no doubt about it. The one thing about Hamilton, we do have the museums here in Philadelphia. So
Exactly.
there's always that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good way to pitch them over here. But come visit the museums. All right. So I'm going to start with two hypothetical ones that I have, and then I'm going to go with some of the polls I ran on social media for the fans that just to have some fun with this a little bit, because my trade's going to be a little more outside the box. So I'm going to start with two potential realistic possibilities, and then show some of the polls I ran about some both potential trades, and then which would you rather have type of trade scenario, just as like see what people thought. So one idea I'm thinking of is you give a call to Columbus. This is a team that you've made trades with in the past, and maybe see what it would take to pluck Charlie Coyle over there. Charlie Coyle is in the last year of his deal. He makes $5.25 million a year. I think he's playing in the middle six for them. 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points in 32 games this year. This is a guy I think that would actually be a decent fit somewhere in your middle six. You don't have to commit to him long term, at least until you feel a little more comfortable about Luchenko. I do think you need to find a way to move these guys down. As mentioned, I'd love to see. I've been adamant that Couturier, I think, needs to move to a bottom six role for quite some time now. I don't think he should be playing a top six role anymore. If you can get him even to the third line, I'd be fine with that. And maybe move a guy like a Charlie Coyle up to the 2C temporarily. I don't think Charlie Coyle is much of a 2C. This is a discussion I've actually had in our group chat before, but I think he'd be better than almost anyone you have right now. And I think he'd be a good fit, at least for the time being. He is on pace for about 50 points this year. And while Columbus still is theoretically in the hunt, they're the only team in the East right now with a losing NHL 500 record. So that's a team that could be potentially falling out of it sooner rather than later. Looking at the big picture, they know they're going to have to pass 8 teams. And you've made some trades with Columbus in the past. This isn't a division rival that is a team that's going to hang the phone up on you. You know, you had the Voracek-Atkinson trade. You had the Jeff Carter trade back in the day. You had the Scott Hartnell and RJ Umberger trade. So this isn't a team that you don't have familiarity with. And then obviously you'd had the big Ivan Provorov trade with them. So actually that's 4 I can think of off the top of my head. So Columbus is a team that they have history with, and that is a team I think you could potentially maybe make a call with. Another guy that I'm looking at, I think to give a trade package for Charlie Coyle, I think it would cost maybe like a second round pick, especially since he has no term left and he's more of a rental. Another guy who I don't think quite would be as expensive. This guy's a young kid. It might help give Michkov a little more comfortability here. Is Fyodor Svechkov. He's out in Nashville. He's a center. He plays, I think, like on the third line right now. Not a big guy, but he could be someone you could slot on your fourth line, someone who at least can give you some production. He wouldn't cost much. He's only 22 years old. In 31 games played, he's got 1 goal and 7 assists this year. Could be a low-cost guy you throw a third or fourth round pick for to A, make Michkov a little more comfortable having another Russian tie on this team, and B, could actually give you something to that bottom six or to that fourth line more in particular, where you don't have to put yourself in a position where you have to give up some real assets. Like realistically, a kid like this, I think, is only going to cost you a third or fourth round pick. If I remember correctly, he is a former first round pick, but he hasn't really shown much in his time in Nashville. Last year, he had 17 points in 52 games. He's now on his age 22 season. He's on pace for probably about 20 points this year. Again, he feels like a career bottom six guy. So maybe a third round pick could be sufficient enough to get a guy like this. He's an RFA, I believe, at the end of the year too. So you would still have some term with him. So that's another guy I'd keep an eye on. Now, for the fun trades that I made on Twitter, I ran a couple polls this week. I'm going to swap this to a 3-bot. Oh, hold on 1 second. Apologies. Looks like that ain't going to work the way. Actually, you know what? It might work. Let me see something. I'm going to see if I can swap the boxes up a little bit and see if I can bring you gentlemen in. Doesn't look like it's going to work the way I had it. names. All right. So you know what? I'll pull it out this way instead. So the first one, I'm going to kind of zoom into this a little bit this way. I made a trade here. Good hypothetical trade for Flyers fans. Buffalo calls offering Solanian for Owen Tippett 1-for-1. Would you do it? It got a lot of volume, 563 votes before this went final. Now, me personally, I think it would probably cost a little bit more for a guy like Solanius here. You may have to add a little bit of more draft compensation, maybe throw a prospect in there, because Hellenius is a lot younger and potentially he is a center. So he probably is worth more and has a little bit higher of a ceiling. Buffalo is a team I've emphasized that needs some help in the wing for quite some time now. I don't think it's as urgent now with Doan kind of emerging, and they could obviously move Tage Thompson over there as well. But I do think adding another top 6 winger for Buffalo would assist them. And a guy like Owen Tippett, who is probably on pace for about 25 goals again this year, could be a good second-line winger for a team like them. Maybe even a first-liner if he's surrounded with the correct talent out in Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo's got better centers than we have. I don't think there's any secret there. So that's a guy that obviously you guys have just discussed, Kostas Hellenius. That could be an interesting name. I do think it would cost a little bit more, but that poll I ran was just to see what Flyers fans would think about that. The second one I did. Let me pull it up here. Another fun mock trade. Vancouver calls offering Elias Pettersson, and you would need to give up Cam York and Tyson Foerster to do it. Would you do this trade? This is more of a question for you, gentlemen. This is kind of a fun one here. It's big name for some big names. Flyers address their top 6 center, probably 1C role, but you give up some value. Eric knows this already. I'm sure you do to an extent too, Isaiah. I am the number 1 fan of the Tyson Foerster fan club. You know how devastated I was when we lost him. Is this a trade you guys would actually be interested in?
No. I would not give up Foerster. I would do maybe like York, a prospect and a pick, max. But because look, Pettersson comes with a massive fucking contract that he's not really living up to. Like, I'll give it to him though. He's been playing better defensively. If you look at his actual defensive number, he's playing better. There is skill there, but right now, offensively at least, he's not living up to those numbers.
He's only on a pace for about a 60-something point season.
So I wouldn't give up York and Foerster. It would have to be like York, a prospect, like let's say an Alex bump, like a bump, a York, and a pick. But that's as far as I'd go. But there's no way I'm trading.
Yeah, that wouldn't get it done either. And the thing is, I really have to defer to the coach on this one. Nobody knows the player better than the coach. My sense is he's not really crazy about the player. So if that's the case, I wouldn't make the trade. And I don't think the trade's viable in a lot of ways because I don't think Tocchet likes the player. And of course, I think whether we want to admit it or not, there's a little bit of a shadow over the career of Tyson Foerster. Until he proves, just like there was over Ristolainen. That was a second tricep injury. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, this is kind of like the second injury to his arm. I don't know the nature of it.
Too,
yeah, it was a shoulder or bicep or tendon or anything like that. I don't know. So I don't think it's viable in that way. But you're just talking about in the most perfect scenario, everybody's healthy and all that. I think it would really be on the coach. Would I do that trade? If the coach doesn't like him and you're paying him that kind of money for that long, I'd have to take a pass. As much as I respect the skill, I just don't know in the playoffs if that guy's going to show up the way you want to, if you're paying that kind of money for that kind of term. That's my real doubt about the player. It's not the talent, though.
Yeah, I agree there. Listen, this guy's got 100-point season under his belt. You would be making this trade hoping to re-unlock that. And me personally, I would probably lean no, but I think it is an interesting conversation to have. I don't think you're going to ever see 100-point Elias Pettersson ever again, but if you could get him close to that 80-point mark, it's definitely a trade you could worth considering. I said Tyson Foerster, aside from his playmaking, because this is a massive difference between the two players, Tyson Foerster has a lot of Mark Stone qualities. He just doesn't have the playmaking Mark Stone has, obviously. But Tyson was on pace to potentially be in Selke conversations this year. He'd been playing such a great two-way game. And how often do you see a winger in that position? Like he had 10 goals in 21 games this year before the shoulder injury happened.
Yeah,
This guy was pushing close to a 40-goal pace this year, if he stayed healthy, obviously. But definitely something to watch there. That would be my second trade. But I'll do one more here, and then we'll move on to our next topic. Final trade I have here. Let me do this real quick. Another trade question for Flyers fans. You have a choice between acquiring one of 4 defensemen. Out of these 4, which would you choose? Simon Nemec, Owen Power, Bowen Byram, or Pavel Mintyukov? I always botch the name. But yeah, last question for this topic. Gentlemen, which would you choose?
Good question. It's a good question. I would probably lean Power. Just for the possible upside. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Nemec is a good young defenseman, very skilled, and so is Mintyukov. But like, I know, like, he doesn't, like, the big knock on Power I keep on hearing, he's so big, but he doesn't play to his size. Now, it's and that's a lot of what we heard with Sanheim early in his career too, right? And look, guys end up like, I'm not saying that Sanheim's a big physical guy, like, but at least he's learned to play more better with his size. So it's something that can, I guess, be learned. And like, Power has shown some offensive ability. So I don't know. I would probably kind of lean towards Power, and honestly, just because I think right now he might be the one available. Like, again, now Mintyukov has been rumored before. Like, I think he had asked for a trade or anyway, something like that. But yeah, no, I think I would lean a little bit more towards Power.
Yeah. That would probably be my choice. Nemec would be a very close second. FYI, everyone, Isaiah did have to head out, so it's going to just be me and Eric wrapping things up for the rest of the show. But Isaiah did tell me in our private chat he would have leaned Nemec. Me personally, it would be between those guys, Owen Power and Simon Nemec. I think they both have high ceilings that haven't been unlocked yet. Power brings potential physicality with his size, where Nemec, I think, brings a little more skill. So it really just depends what you value. But out of those two, at 4, I think it'd be those two I'd be leaning upon. Eric, anything else you want to add before we move on to our next topic?
Well, yeah, one thing real quick, just to touch on something that you had said, like with the history with Columbus and the Flyers trading like so often the past few years. The one common denominator in those years was Jarmo Kekalainen, because he was the GM because he was the GM for Columbus since 2013. So
where is he now?
Exactly. Where is he now? He's in Buffalo. Buffalo has what we need. Just saying. So, possibility.
Could be something to watch. Could be something to watch for sure. He was there for a decade. Now he's in Buffalo, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
He's an aggressive trader. Danny, might be time to give him a call. We'll see.
I'll be honest, I really would not be shocked if, like, well, now there's the freeze, but like in the next couple weeks, the next 2-3 weeks, that you're going to be hearing a lot of Buffalo and Philly rumors. I'm telling you, I would not be shocked.
I wouldn't either. All right. With that being said, let's move on to our next topic. Flyers got some ominous news this week. So obviously, about a month ago, Tyson Foerster did go down with what was at the time deemed as a separated shoulder. The time frame for the injury was stated as 2 to 3 months, expecting around a return around the Olympic break, give or take. Well, ended up being a little worse than we thought. Back on December 15th, he went under the knife, had surgery, now is going to be out 5 months. Pretty much, it definitely ending his regular season. maybe if this team makes a run in the playoffs, he comes back. But I feel like that's very unlikely and very unwise because I don't think you're going to get him at 100%, especially at hockey. Pretty much at hockey form in May when he hasn't laced up skates in almost 6 months for a professional game. So, Eric, with that being said, what is the impact that Tyson Foerster's loss for the season do for this team, and where do they go from here?
Look, it's a huge loss, man. Like it is what it is. It's a huge loss. The fact of the matter is, like, where do we go from here? You can't replace Tyson Foerster. Honestly, I don't think we're not in a position right now where we could be wasting assets on like a short-term fix. It's just not gonna happen. It's not. I don't see Danny Barrett doing that. If something becomes available and all it costs you a third or a fourth, yeah, why the hell not? But I don't know who's gonna come for that kind of price, like But it really sucks, man, because like the guy was having a breakout year, like at least goal scoring wise. Like he had 10 goals in 21 games. Like he was really picking up from the end of last season. And what was I gonna say? It sucks. I'm gonna repeat myself, but like, look, at the end of the day, it's got what it has to be is next man up mentality. So you know what? Carl Grundstrom was on a bit of a run. He got some time in the top 6. A little weird, but whatever. Let's play him there. You look at he's better suited as a fourth liner. And then look, I found actually Grabenkin last night looked half decent on that line with TK and Zegras.
I'm glad they got away from Gunstrom at that point. I 100% agree with that.
I was
no reason to put him up there.
Yeah, like what the hell is he doing up there?
This guy's got a career high of 19 points. No disrespect to Gunstrom. He had a nice little spurt for 5 games. He's a fourth liner. Keep him there.
Yeah. Look, at the end of it, like me too. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, look, the guy. Yes, the guy was playing well, but he's playing well in the bottom 6 because he's a bottom 6er. And like, look, you want to give him a chance in the top 6, fine. You want to reward him, okay. But like, then he clearly showed that like he's not a top 6 player. And I'll give Talk credit. Like early on in the game, I think he probably realized it too. And like then he switched him up. So yeah, look, but like, and you look at Denver Barkey. I thought Denver Barkey had a hell of a game last night. Hell of a game, or not last night, but yesterday afternoon. But like, so maybe he holds it down for like a little bit, and if he can, like he produced 2 assists. First game, 1 game, 2 assists. Not bad, not too shabby. So, like, yeah, look, if we can get some production from like either like Grundstrom, Barkey, Grabenkin, it's gonna have to be done through committee. To replace whatever Foerster, what you lost with Foerster. It has to be done through committee. So yeah, and who knows? Maybe we'll see bump up eventually. I think that's what I think Danny said that he got hurt, so he's gonna probably miss about a week. But like he said that he's also like he wouldn't be surprised if he gets a call up sometime soon. So we'll see. But like I said, it has to be done through committee.
I agree. Listen, as the number 1 fan of the Tyson Foerster fan club, I'd like to take a moment of silence for our king. I'm in pain. No, in all seriousness, no, this sucks. Tyson brings a lot. Fantastic 2-way guy. Hell of a shot. You're probably leaving 30, 35 goals off the ice now. As you mentioned, Eric, it's going to have to be done via committee. This guy is someone who has been an ample part of this team for the last handful of years. He looks like a home run pick where you got him, pick 20 or 21, I can't remember exactly, in 2020. He is, like I said, minus the playmaking, this guy looks like the next Mark Stone. But he's someone that is going to have a big hole to fill. And, I wonder if they're going to have Barkey just stay in that role eventually. Currently, they have Mitch Cobb playing with Cates and Brink. And while I guess it's okay temporarily, I don't think that should be the long-term solution. I think a kid like Denver Barkey, he showed it yesterday. His vision is pretty damn good. He's a battler on boards and battles for the puck. He's got a hell of a motor. And this is why I think this kid should potentially stick here. I've always been high on Denver Barkey. I thought he was a steal in the 3rd round when the Flyers got him. And he has really shown it. Like, he comes out yesterday, he had 2 assists, both primary. He got robbed on a goal bid in the first period. He was everywhere. He had limited ice time. He only had 13, 14 minutes, I believe. It's not like they gave him instant 16, 17 minutes. You're not supposed to do that for a rookie anyway. But it was good to see him really make an impact like that. And, maybe he's not going to do everything, but maybe he can help soften the blow a little bit. And it's kind of like a glass half full way of looking at this. When you lose a guy of that quality, it gives younger kids an opportunity to get that chance and maybe play and give that play that you didn't think that they had prior, and give you more options for next year when Tyson is healthy. Who knows, maybe this is one thing we've emphasized for quite some time, that the Flyers are going to have to trade 1 or 2 wingers sooner rather than later, because Barkey, Bump, Martone are all going to be pushing for spots soon. You've already got Barkey now, and mind you, he's only played 1 game. We'll see how he does over the next few games. He's going to be here for the next 2. He'll probably be here for the West Coast road trip, even when Dvorak is back. I'd like to think they're going to be scratching Hathaway more, Delorier more, and maybe they run a 4th line of, say, Abels, Gunstrom, and who knows, maybe they move Couturier down the 4th line at some point, or maybe they move Noah Cates there or something like that. I don't think it will be Cates, but there's definitely some possibilities. But if Barkey can stick, and they maybe find more of a reason to move Zegras to the center position with the loss of Dvorak temporarily until he is back, this is going to lead to an interesting predicament for this team. But back to my main point of Foerster, losing him, you're not as good as a defensive team, and you're not as threatening of a scoring team. Even with the committee replacements, it's a big hole you can't fill. It's a big hole you can't instantly fill. You just got to do the best you can and put a Band-Aid over it. And hopefully the guys that they have going there step up. Owen Tippett, he's been playing better this year than last, minus that egregious turnover that led to the Rangers' 2nd goal yesterday. That was abysmal. Maybe Brink and Case can take a little more of a role. Those two still know each other like the back of their hand, so that's always good that you got 2 guys with that level of chemistry still in that 3rd line. Zegras, maybe he continues to – obviously he doesn't play a good defensive game, Zegras, but maybe he can keep picking it up and continue to make up for some of the loss of Foerster's offensive play. Mitchkov eventually maybe turns it around. TK, I thought he had a half-decent week. Maybe he continues to build off of that. So it's going to be by committee at the end of the day. Losing Foerster sucks. Does give opportunities, though, to some of the younger guys. Denver Barkey being the first example. We'll see if he sticks. We'll see how this team tried to replicate what they lost out of Foerster. Anything else you want to add, Eric?
Just a couple things quick. Like you had said, like once Devo comes back, now I'm curious what's gonna happen with the lineup also. Because look, you could just, I guess, easily take out Delorier and just bring Devo back in, but now that keeps Hathaway out of the lineup. How long do they want to keep Hathaway out of the lineup? And that's the issue. So especially if look, I don't. Danny Briere said he goes, it's day to day. So most probably you're looking at he's gonna probably miss a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more games. Depending, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. There's been no update. So if Barkey does continue playing at the rate that he's playing, because look, I was really impressed by he put up games, but just he didn't look out of place.
Not at all.
He just did not look out of place.
You could see it instantly when he stepped on the ice in the first period. He looked comfortable.
And you know what? Something I forgot to mention, but the power play, the first 3 games of this week was 0 for 10. 0 for 10. Okay? And they went 2 for 5 last against the Rangers. And you know what? I'm just saying Denver Barkey was on the power play. So
to be fair, that second one was 3 seconds off of a Zegras one-timer. I don't even think anyone saw the ice on that one. But the first one.
But all I'm saying, Alex, is that the power play was awful.
Yeah.
Denver Barkey, first game, he was on the power play, and it went 2 for 5. Just saying. And he had the primary assist on. It was the primary, no, on the. Anyway.
Yeah, both of the first 2 goals he had primary.
They were both primary assists. Okay, that's it. So I'm just saying. So look, if he continues this, how can you justify taking him out of the lineup?
Yeah.
So I personally because then I think obviously Grunstrom is back on the 4th line. That's for sure. Abels doesn't look like he's gonna go anywhere. Because he's the only 4th line center we have at this point. So I'm thinking maybe D'Lo becomes like that 14th forward and Hathaway, and then it's going to be a rotation of Hathaway and Grabenkin again. Or you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't mind this, but like if you're not going to play Grabenkin, then you know what? Why not send him back to Lehigh Valley and let him basically take Barkey's spot with the Phantoms? Because look, I don't think Grabenkin is going to be some kind of like superstar, all-star player. I really don't. But like you see, like what I see in him, and I think I mentioned this early on, like a few episodes back, I see a young Hathaway in Grabenkin. That's what I see. So if we can mold this guy into being an offensive, like a 4th liner that brings like some edge, that brings like some physicality, and that could put up some points on a 4th line and like play on a more like maybe a skilled 3rd line. That's added. That's a plus, man. That's fucking great. So at that point, if he's gonna be in and out of the lineup, especially if Barkey's gonna like be that Foerster replacement, then you know what? I really wouldn't mind to see him getting sent back down to the minors and getting some extra playing time with the Phantoms.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, that is an option. Maybe they do send Grabenkin down. It is concerning they keep still going back and forth between playing him and healthy scratching him. I'd rather him just get full-time minutes with the Phantoms if that's what they're going to do with the kid. But, now that they added Barkey up here, and if Barkey does play well, it's going to add another interesting predicament to put this team in. Either a trade or sending Grabenkin down will have to happen sooner rather than later for sure. But, all right, so let's move on to next week's games. Flyers have 2 games before on Monday and Tuesday. Then we got the Christmas break. I think they got one on Saturday. I want to say, is it Saturday? No, I lied. They don't play again until Sunday. So we'll just do the 2 games for now. Okay. Because they're going to be on Christmas break. And something to mention, we will be too. We will not be recording next week, just an FYI. So, why don't we do the West Coast trip too while we're at it? Since we're not going to be here next week and we're taking a week off, let's do the West Coast trip as well. So the 2 games, and they got Sunday against the Kraken, the 28th, Tuesday against the Canucks, the 30th, Wednesday against the Flames, the 31st, and then Saturday against the Oilers, January 3rd. And we'll be back January 4th to record. So 6 games. Let's have some fun with this, Eric. Give me a record for these.
Quick second. I didn't check this. Who are they playing Monday and Tuesday?
Monday is home against Vancouver, their last home game of the calendar year. And then Tuesday is at Chicago.
At Chicago. Okay, so Vancouver, Chicago, Seattle, Vancouver, Calgary, Oilers. Whew. Vancouver's hot, man, since making that trade. And you know what, man? I fucking said it. I go, you know what? Vancouver, I said it on Twitter. I said it on Pop. I think Vancouver did a lot better than a lot of people think in that trade.
I agreed with you. I thought this was a trade on both sides.
But all over Twitter, everyone's like, "Oh my God, Minnesota fleece, Minnesota."
Like, that was not a fleece.
Let's calm down a little bit. Okay, so Monday against Vancouver, I think we lose to Vancouver. I think Vancouver, they're hot and they still got they're gonna keep that momentum going at least for now. Chicago's been on a bit of a slide. They just lost Frankie Nazar for a month.
And they have no Bedard either, so that makes it even worse.
Exactly. So I think we beat Chicago. So 1-1 for those 2 games. And then the Sunday when we come back against Seattle, we beat Seattle because Seattle's a fraud team. We go out then to Vancouver. I think that's when we got a little bit of revenge. So maybe, Vancouver cools off a little bit off this hot start. So I think we beat Vancouver. Calgary's also a mess.
They've
But I
been
don't know,
hot lately, though. They're 10-4-1 in the last
Yeah.
15, Calgary.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, they are kind of hot. And you know what? Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, revenge game. I don't know. I don't see that happening. Actually, Farabee's been actually playing pretty well lately for Vancouver.
About
So
time. I want to see that kid succeed.
Yeah.
I get critical of him all the time on social media, but it's only because I want to see him play well. I like Farabee a lot. I do. He deserves a turnaround. Like, I don't
Honestly,
give a damn
yeah.
about Morgan Frost, so disrespect.
Yeah,
Joel
Frost,
Farabee,
like,
I've always had a soft spot.
it's
for.
okay. No, the Farabee thing was just so weird how he just like from, usually you see that progression and like, oh, he's getting bad. He's like with Farabee, man, it's like hit a wall one day and then just
He had 30 points in a 115 game span.
like,
But going into this year, now it's 48 in his last 151. So it's a little better, but
it was so anyway. I still you know what? I think we still beat Calgary. Fucking, I'm being very generous with this little stretch of games here. Oilers. Okay, we'll lose to the Oilers. We'll lose to the
3-1
Oilers.
on the West Coast trip. I'm doing cartwheels if we do that.
So
Sure.
you know what? Yeah, 4-2 in the next 6 games.
All right.
I don't know where I'm getting this optimism after I think pour into them about this week's games. But you know what? Fuck
That's a
it.
win
4-2.
if that's what happens here. All right. I'm going to have a few different games with you, Eric. I think they beat Vancouver. I think this team comes off pissed off after how they choked back-to-back games. Talkett's going to ram that in their head to finish a game. I think they come out hard. They win 5-2 against Vancouver. Second game, Chicago. Everything points for a Flyers win, right? Here's the issue. They're coming off a back-to-back.
Exactly.
And it's a game they should win. Everything points to a Flyers win, so it's a perfect game for them to lose. And as I mentioned, Blackhawks will be well rested. Flyers coming off a back-to-back will be their 10th game in 17 days. They've traveled for each one of these the last 6 games, even the home game because they've had to travel home. So I think they lose to Chicago out of just fatigue. Then they come back Sunday, 8 p.m. against the Kraken. I agree with you there. The Kraken are frauds. They're going to beat them. That'll be belt to ass. Chicago, they lose, I'm going to say 4-2. Kraken, I say they win 3-0. We get our first shutout of the year. They shut the Kraken out. Then we got Tuesday at the Canucks. I am always glass half empty on this West Coast trip. Never goes well for them, the West Canada trip. The New Year's Disney on Ice trip is what I like to call it, whether it's Western Canada, Western Cali, or just some type of trip. It's the road trip for New Year's Disney on Ice, whatever you call it. I got them. I'm going to say they lose in overtime to the Canucks. I'll say 5-4. But despite it being a back-to-back, I think they go out, beat Calgary 3-2 in an ugly one. And then Edmonton, I'm with you. I think they lose that game. I'm going to say, I'll say 6-3. So I have them 3-2-1 over the next 6 games. 2-1-1 in the West Coast trip, which I would take personally. That's a win in my eyes. Getting 5 out of 8 points out there, but it just never seems to go that way. Usually an average Western Canada trip. I'm going to add Seattle to this because it's pretty much part of it, even though they're technically Washington State. The Western Canada trip, it always seems like they go like 1-3, 1-2-1, some shit like that. So if they get 2 out of 4 here, I'm elated. That's a win to me. But yeah, Eric, anything else? Final thoughts before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, man, just want to say just quickly, like, guys, man, like, play 60 minutes. Please play 60 minutes. You got a lead, man. Don't sit back. Don't let the other team come back in.
Agreed.
Keep the pressure on. Keep on pushing the pace. No prevent defense. That just leads to bad things.
Agreed. My final thoughts is build off of the power play, minimal power play success you just had yesterday. Please It's been over half a decade since this team has had a consistently good power play. Can we go back like it's 2011-12 again, or the mid-2010 power plays? We shit on the Flyers being mediocre those years, but they always had a good power play. Can we just go back to that? The Giroux, Voracek, Simmons, Shen, Gostisbehere / Timonen power play days, or young Couturier if you want to throw him in there too. Bring it back. Bring back the good power play days, man.
Yeah. And maybe try Grabank in that front.
Something we mentioned a couple times now. Agreed. Just saying. All right. But with that being said, that is going to wrap things up. This is indeed our final episode of the calendar year. So we will see you guys at the beginning of 2026. So with all that being said, you guys have a fantastic holidays. For those who celebrate it, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Enjoy your time out there. Have a happy new year. Hopefully the Flyers can have a great West Coast trip. And over these next 6 games, we're talking about a positive run. And, we're talking about how this team is second in the division. And we're looking at this. And Mitchkov goes on an 11-point bender in the next 6 games. And we're all happy. And Vladar's back and healthy. And Dvorak's back and healthy. And then a miracle happens. And they say, yeah, Tyson Foerster's injury isn't as bad as we thought. He's going to be back in a month. And then I woke up. Went off. That one's more just fantasy land. But
that one's more when I'm sleeping in my dreams.
Yeah, exactly. But again, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Flyer Gonna Flyer. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting us. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Please help us with our goal to 500 subscriptions. We're up to 315. We got another 2 over the last few weeks. So any sub is helpful. We're 185 away from being monetized. So please, each and every subscription is helpful. We will gladly appreciate you. Thank you. You're all awesome. Leave some comments. Give us some suggestions for future episodes. We're always open for it. But with that being said, again, that's going to wrap things up. We'll see you after the new year. And as always, let's go Flyers.